Hey, it's Pania. I am back and I'm going to show you how to make my Sandra fall crop sweater. I have a larger version and also a smaller version. Today I'm going to show you how to make the small version for a girl size 5 to 6T. For this project here, you'll also need a crochet hook size J 5.75 millimeters, and then also a scissor, a yarn needle, and a couple of stitch markers. For our project, we're going to start with the front panel, and we'll begin with the first color and make a slip knot and insert your hook into the slip knot. We'll chain 2. From here, we're going to make half double crochet chainless foundation stitch, and to begin, yarn over, then insert the hook into the very first chain, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Or yarn over again and insert your hook into the top 2 loop of the previous stitch. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And we're going to repeat that up until we make 30 half double crochet chainless foundation stitches. And I'm finally here at the last stitch, half double crochet chainless foundation stitch. Here I'm going to grab my second color and begin with the slip knot for this second row and attach my yarn to the hook and pull that second color through the first color. And we'll chain 1 and insert your hook into the very back loop and make a half double crochet. And we'll continue making half double crochet only in the back loop all the way to the very end of the row. For this row, we should also have 30 half double crochet in the back loops. Here I'm at the end of the second row. I'm making my last half double crochet in the back loop. Then I'm going to snip off that second color, and you can also for the first one as well. For row 3, 4, and 5, we're repeating row 2, but every round we'll switch color until the very last 5th color. For row 6, we're going to change to color 1, and we're going to attach that yarn to the very beginning of that row, and we'll also make half double crochet in the back loops all the way to the very end. At the end here, I'm finishing up a couple of the half double crochet in the back loops and turning my work, chain 1 and half double crochet in each of the stitches in the back loop only all the way to the end. For row 7 here, I am going to snip off my yarn and attach color 2. For row 8 to row 15, we're repeating row 6 to row 7, making sure to change your yarn color after you have 2 repeated rows of the same color. So we'll do that all the way to row 15. Here at row 16, I'm going to attach color 1 and chain 1, and we'll half double crochet in the back loops all the way to the end. Here at the end, we'll make our last half double crochet in the back loop and then turn your work. For row 17, chain 1 and half double crochet into each of the back loops all the way to the end of this row. And then for row 18, we'll repeat row 17 with the same color. And then for row 19 all the way to row 30, we'll basically repeat row 16 to row 18, making sure to change your yarn color after the 3 rows of the same color. So this is our first panel. You'll repeat the same thing for the second panel for the back of the sweater. Oh, and make sure to yarn over and pull through your yarn so that this is secure. At this point here, if you like to, I like to go back and just kind of knot all the loose ends because I didn't really secure them, or else you can go into it at the end of the project and secure your loose ends. So I'm just gonna secure these parts so that when I actually work at the bottom edge and the neck, that it'll all be kind of secure already. And then after that, turn the front and back panel on the right side so that the wrong side is facing outward. The rows should be standing vertically and each row of colors should align together. And as you can see here, I made one of the arms ready. I am going to show you how to make that'll match the row at the end of the edges here. So I placed a couple of stitch marker on this side just to show you where we will be seaming some of the parts of this sweater. There's this one right in the middle at the center of the neck, and there are 7 rows right before I start seaming the top of the shoulder on this left side. And then count 7 rows to the right, and then on the 8th row, we'll place a stitch marker there as well to show you where to seam. And then down on the right arm there, I left 20 stitches, and then on the 21st stitch down, I put another stitch marker to show you where from the stitch marker down we'll have to seam. For the right arm, I am starting with the color number 1, and I'm gonna flip my shirt outside in so that I can seam the shoulder and also the side from inside out of the shirt. I'm going to seam from the right side of the corner all the way towards the stitch marker. With my yarn needle and my yarn, I'm going to make a slip knot and attach my yarn from the very corner. And then insert your needle through the slip knot to secure the corner. And to seam, you can do however you like for seaming, but for me, I am going to use my yarn needle and loop it through each of the row twice. And if you want to, you could slip stitch across this, or you can do the zigzag as well if you wanted to seam it that way. So for me, I'm going to loop my needle through one of the spots here in the first row, and then just into the next spot of the same row. And then you can just repeat that all the way to the stitch marker. Just make sure that each of the rows colors actually line up together when you're seaming the shoulder. If you wanted to make the shoulder seaming part looks more clean or seamless, you can choose to do it with different colors, but for me, I chose not to because there's so many little rows that I feel like it would take too much time for me to change color every time that I wanted to seam the shoulder up. And just a note, when you're done with seaming both of the shoulder up, there should be about 14 rows at the center for the neck hole. Here I'm removing the stitch marker so that I can seam the very last stitch up. And I'm going to just insert that back into the same stitch so that I can make my knot and secure the shoulder up with a double knot. And I'm going to snip off the yarn, and we will turn the shirt back up so you can see the top of the shoulder once it's seamed. And like I say, because I use the same yarn color, you will see it pop through the different colors here, but you can choose to do it differently so each row would have its own color, but that'd be too much for me anyway. So I am gonna leave it the way it is because it doesn't really bother me. So anyway, I'm turning the shirt back outside in so that I can seam the right side of the sweater as well. Using the same color and going through the very corner to begin attaching, and make sure to have a slip knot at the end here so you can secure the corner. For the side of the sweater here, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to loop my needle into each of the stitches under 2 loops. So you have 4 loops to go through because there's 2 panels, and I'm just gonna loop it through from the right to the left and up again and all the way to the stitch marker. Here at the last stitch that I'm seaming, I'm taking out the stitch marker so I can finish seaming the side here. I'm just gonna go through it again one more time so I can double knot here. And then snip off your yarn, and you can turn your sweater back outside upwards so that you can see your armhole. So from here, I'm going to show you how to make the arm. For the arm, we're using the same color number 1, and we'll attach it with a slip knot. And so for here, we're going to go into the very first stitch right where you seam both of the front and the back panel. And as you can see here, there is kind of like a braid, and I kind of want that to be facing upwards so you can see the braid down that kind of goes along with the front panel and the back panel with the ribbing. So the very first stitch here, there are 3 loops. So I want these 2 V-shape to be facing out. So what we're going to do is we'll be working into the very back loop only. And so we'll start a hook here and we'll yarn over and pull the yarn through. Then chain 1 and half double crochet in the same stitch, which is the back loop, and then continue making half double crochet only in the back loop all the way to the seam area. So here at the seaming area, kind of right under the armpit area, there is 1 more stitch left, and I'm going to half double crochet 2 together, that very last stitch, which is the 20th stitch, and into the very first stitch that was seamed down the side. So we'll half double crochet that together with the 20th stitch. And then we'll do the same thing to the other panel here. So we'll yarn over and insert the hook into that area with the seam. And then also half double crochet together with the next stitch in the back loop only. That will be the first stitch of that panel. And then we'll continue with the half double crochet in the back loop only all the way back to the beginning of the round here. And so we're here at the end of the very first round of the sleeve. I'm going to do my last half double crochet in the back loop here, which is a little very small. For this next part here, I'm going to yarn over and half double crochet 2 together the spot where we seam and the very first stitch of the round. And so for this round, this will be considered your first stitch. I'm going to place a stitch marker here just so that when I come back to it, I know that this is the very first stitch of the first round. From here, we'll half double crochet in each of the stitches through both of the loops all the way to the end of the round. And there should be a total of 40 stitches. At the end of the round here, I'm going to half double crochet into that very first stitch of the round below. Then remove the stitch marker from below and place that one on top of the stitch that was just made. This will be our first stitch of the next round. From round 3 through round 19, we'll repeat round 2. At the end of round 19 here, I'm going to take the stitch marker off. I'm going to half double crochet 2 together the next 2 stitches. And then put my stitch marker on that stitch was just made. This will be our first half double crochet 2 together for this round. For this row, we'll do half double crochet 2 together each of the next 2 stitches all the way to the end of the round. For the next row here, I'm going to take the stitch marker off and single crochet into that very first stitch and then put my stitch marker back on that first stitch of this next round, which is round 21. And then continue making single crochet into each of the stitches all the way to the end of the round. And then for round 22 to round 35, we'll repeat round 21. Here at the end of round 35, I'm going to take my hook off and insert that hook into the very first stitch of the row below and hook it through the loop that was just removed, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through, and cut the yarn off. Here I'm going to remove my stitch marker and just secure my loose end here in. And there it is, we got both of our sleeves. I'm gonna turn my sweater now upside down, and this is actually the front side of the sweater. I'm going to begin on the right side of the body here, as close as I can to the seam, and I'm going to grab the yellow or color number 5 and make a slip knot and attach my yarn very close to the seam here. So we'll chain 1 and single crochet into that very same stitch. And then we'll single crochet into each row all the way to the other side of the sweater. So 1 single crochet for each row. Here at the end, making my last single crochet, making sure that it's super close to the seaming area. Turn your work over, chain 1 and single crochet into each of these stitches all the way to the end of the row. For round 3 to round 6, we'll repeat round 2. At the end of round 6, we'll yarn over and snip off the yarn. And then we're going to work on the bottom edging of the back of the sweater, and we'll repeat the same thing, except that we are making 10 rows instead of 6 rows. So here at the end of row 10, I'm not going to cut it. I'm actually going to turn my work and create another row. So row 11, I'm going to chain 1 and single crochet all the way to the other end of the sweater. So now at the end of row 11, I'm going to make another single crochet, chain 1 and single crochet in the same stitch. Turn the sweater just slightly here and create single crochet into each of the row all the way to the very last row of that yellow color. So in this row, I am going to single crochet 2 together, the very last color with the very last color on the other panel. Then we'll single crochet all the way to the corner again, and at the corner here, single crochet into that very last stitch, chain 1 and single crochet into that same stitch, then single crochet all along this edge all the way to the other corner. Then here in this corner, single crochet, chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch. Then we'll turn the sweater a little bit and single crochet into each of the row until the very last row of that split. And then for the very last row at this edge here, we'll single crochet 2 together that last row with the other panel, the very last row of the other panel as well. And then single crochet along each of the row there all the way back to the corner. And here at the corner, single crochet in that very last stitch, chain 1 and slip stitch back into the very first stitch that was created. Here you can cut your yarn and secure your loose ends. And as you can see, this is the bottom edging. The front is shorter than the back of the sweater. So when you turn the sweater at the side here, you can see it goes from low to high. Now I'm going to show you how to make the neck. So I'm going to turn the shirt onto the back. So as you can see here, this is the back of the sweater with the stitch marker right in the center between the 14 rows. So I'm going to attach the yarn. I'm choosing the first color, which is similar to the arm on the right side here. And I'm going to attach the yarn over here on that very left side of the stitch marker and chain 1. And then single crochet into that very same stitch. And for the neck area here, we're going to make 1 single crochet in this spot and then 1 single crochet into the next spot of the same row. So basically 2 single crochet for each row. And we'll do that all the way to the other end of the neck where the seaming is on the left side of the sweater. Here at the left side of the sweater here, I'm going to single crochet into the very last row and then single crochet 2 together the very last stitch with the very first stitch of the other panel, and then single crochet in the same row, then single crochet into each of the row, making sure that you have 2 single crochet for 1 row. And we'll repeat the same thing we did on that left side of the corner with the seaming on the other side. So here at the end of the front panel, I'm going to turn a little bit here and single crochet 2 together that seaming area row, and single crochet 2 together the front and the back of that row, and then single crochet into the same row, then single crochet 2 into each of the row all the way back to the beginning. Here I'm going to remove the stitch marker and I'm going to single crochet 2 together the seaming area and also the very first stitch of that first round. Then I'm going to put a stitch marker on that stitch, which will be the first stitch of the second round of the neck area. From here, we're going to single crochet into each of these stitches all the way around back to the stitch marker. So here at the stitch marker, I'm going to single crochet there and then take the stitch marker off and put the stitch marker on the stitch that was just made, which will be the first stitch of the next round. And we'll repeat this all the way to round 10. At the end of round 10 here, I'm going to take my hook off of that loop and insert it into the back of the very first stitch of that stitch marker area and hook the loop back onto the hook and yarn over and then pull the hook through and cut the yarn off and secure the loose end. At this point here, we made all the parts that we need for the sweater. You can go in and secure all the loose ends.